I'm thinking that's thumbs up. Check my audio. Audio looks good. And I just did a internet speed test. I didn't know that we got 500 megabyte upload speeds as long as I'm on the 5G network. And I have like a funny setup where I had to take my laptop out of my desk and put it on a chair so that it was like a direct line with our little internet modem thing. Hey, what's up, folks? I'm just checking real quick to make sure that this ends up being something that is live for everyone and not just the YouTube supporters, because I did post this as something for everyone. So let's just go to my channel, make sure we're live. In the future, I hope that these support systems allow for me to, like, wouldn't it be cool to have a mod on the channel? Perfect. We're live. Sweet. Like, just someone who could, answer, like, pitch questions to me, moderate the chat, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, future goals. If you are unfamiliar with what we're going to talk about today, I am very much so in the belief that with live streams, you should just jump right into it, especially to make it a little bit easier for people who watch later to interact. It's kind of a little bit boring as a viewer when you spend so much time waiting for people to join the live stream. So we're going to just go for it. Thank you if you're here watching after the stream has gone live. Just a couple updates, and I'm going to do a walkthrough through the Circle community. So for people who, it's a paid community. It's something where if you support my content for just $5 a month, you get access to that community. Just making sure the audio didn't short out because this mic is kind of funny sometimes. So it's a free benefit in the sense that the support for my content goes 100% towards supporting my content. I mean, as it currently stands, I'm paying out of pocket to keep that Circle community, to start it and to kind of get it off the ground, and all the email automations and stuff like that. Like, that's stuff that's not being paid for by supporter money. And so, in the future, if it grows and expands into something else, then I will, as I do every year, just kind of like reevaluate what's working and what's not working. But as you'll see as I walk through it, it provides this amazing level of evergreen content that I wasn't satisfied with in the YouTube comments. So if I have a podcast episode and you happened to have a lot of really great takeaways and you wanted to have a conversation about it, you could do it in the YouTube comments, but it wasn't like you would consistently interact with the same people every episode. It's difficult for me to share my thoughts because I could do it, but then it's just more or less underneath your comment. And I'm very much so in the camp that I want as many people to see an answer to a frequently asked question as possible. And so you'll see why that matters. But more importantly, for live streams going into 2021, this is obviously the first one I've done of the year. For Patreon supporters in the past, I would do this thing called office hours. And so that was, I would write menus when menu writing was a thing for me almost every single week. I would, just like categorize my photos and just do a bunch of office hour things at my laptop. And then if people wanted to join and ask individual questions, that was, something I was happy to provide for the people who were a part of that community. And so going into 2021, as I'm thinking through, this is the only thing. There's no $29 tier. There's no $49 tier. I personally watch a lot of YouTubers in different sectors, whether it's, philosophy or Pokemon cards or, business or whatever. And during their live streams, they don't have a paid community platform, but they use a super chat function on YouTube as a way for people to just kind of like engage with them, support their content. And, in really crowded ones, it's a great way to kind of like get your question to the top of the pile so that the person that you're interested in watching gets to your question. As I'm looking at like the analytics on this one, like we're not at that size of a community yet. And so, basically saying if you're the person who supported my content at a higher tier on Patreon in previous times and you're like $5 a month, like that's a stark difference from the $29 or $9 that I was paying previously. Like, join the live streams and do a super chat. I know that YouTube doesn't necessarily give me the most of that money, but it just kind of gets roped into my AdSense dollars. And the way that I kind of bucket the money that comes in from producing content right now, like it's just going to go straight back into the machine, like uh, my accountant laughs at me because I haven't taken, money from YouTube content production in a really long time. It just gets fed back into making more stuff. So, for future things, the schedule for me going live is going to be every single Monday. That's what I'm hoping for. It might change to Sunday. I'm trying to keep Sundays as kind of like day off. I get to do errands, spend time with Anna, go see my dad, stuff like that. And so Sunday, even though I know Sundays from an industry perspective, a lot of people have off on Sundays, and I know that a lot of people like to get their, business errands done. So like the bank is probably open for you on Monday, or the post office or whatever. It's slower at the grocery store. So I get it. It might not be the most convenient for Monday, but I also know that, a lot of people might just go in on their day off and to do inventory or something. And so to be able to do a live stream like that, I think might be good. And I just want to get into a cadence of it. So the way that it's going to break down is every single Monday, there's going to be a live stream. 3 of them for sure will be on the community. And then I think 1 will be a public one. So the way that it goes currently in my head, I know that we're kind of botching it this month, but the last Monday of every month is going to be a public kind of like live stream. And then all the ones aside from that will just be ways to interact with me if you're on the community. I'll be there every Monday at probably this time, like 2 p.m. Pacific time for me is like a really good time. I saw something cool on Twitter the other day that was like the time in the world where the most people are awake is 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if that ends up being the case, and there's a lot of people in New Zealand and Singapore and whatever, like I will wake up on a Monday at 6 a.m. and do a live stream with you guys. But, we'll see if there's a bunch of people who just decide that that's going to be a better route to go, then that's what we're going to do. It's also, this setup is new. Previous to this, you folks were kind of like off to the side, and I like this a lot. It just makes it super plug and play. It's a Joby GorillaPod wrapped around the arm of my monitor, and then I can just kind of like clip my camera in, flip the screen out so there's a monitor, plug a couple cords in, and slap a light on top. And like this is how you're going to see the interviews coming in from the podcast in future episodes, and it's much better than the kind of like I have to break out my tripod and set it up over there and make sure the lighting is fine, close all the windows and do all that sort of stuff. And so yeah, it's going to become a more regular thing. I hope you folks are excited to interact in that way. And from a selfish perspective, it's just going to be nice for me to have an outlet to talk about random stuff. I think the combination of the newsletter and the live streams will make it so that I don't feel so bogged down of like, I could shoot this knife video, but there's this other thing that I really want to talk about, or, it will make it easier for the podcast episodes to flow to the solo ones, because if we get into a really good conversation on the live stream, that lets me know, yep, that's a good piece. And then it will help the reverse, where it's like, if we have just kind of like a throwaway, did you hear about this? We can just talk about it on the live stream, and then it doesn't have to make, it makes the podcast itself a little bit more valuable. So I'm excited for that. I see a lot of questions coming through. I'm going to get to questions. I'm going to just scroll back up and check out questions as they come in. But I do want to get into the tour of Circle for people that have joined for that. Because otherwise, I think you folks know I'll just continue to go on answering questions forever. So yeah, every Monday will be office hours for the community. Last Monday of every month, as of right now, will be a public one. So, based on the fact that like I'm still getting the community up and off the ground, I might actually do next Monday as a for everyone live stream too, and then we can just kind of start to build that habit together. So yeah, the other thing that I want to do for the end of the month ones, as a kind of like encouragement for people to sign up to support the content, is like cool gear giveaway things. So like if it's a public live stream, and you are someone who's kind of like on the fence about, do I support, do I not? Could I like have 10 spoons, silver spoons at the start of the live stream? And then if you send me a screenshot during the live stream of like, I signed up to support your content every month, I ask for your address and I also ship you out a spoon. that's kind of cool, you know, or like a Write in the Rain notebook, or a Get It Right spoonula, or a Town Cutler palette knife, you know, like there's a bunch of cool kind of like things that I would like to do, because for the most part, $5 a month, like I don't really want to go lower than that, or like you get X number of months free or something like that. I think most people can manage the $5 a month, and it's not to say that I'm putting you financial pressure on you. I really don't mind. I want to keep the content as free as possible, but like fun bonuses of if you join at the last live stream of the month, you know, it's this kind of like fun incentive to sign up and, you know, become a supporter. And then the last piece that I have in my notes here is just like, if you are the type of person who isn't really into the monthly, you know, creator supporting type of thing, you're just kind of like, I like to watch YouTube and I like to watch YouTube and all my other podcasts are free, so like, why should I pay for the emulsion? Totally fine. But if I put out a video that you like got a ton of value from, or like you really like this interview, or like I happen to be doing some really cool campaign where like, hey everybody, I got this opportunity to go interview Renee Redzepi, but I need to find a way to get to Copenhagen, and I need some finances to like help make that happen. I would love for this to be sponsored by you so that I don't have to bring a sponsor on to like get a flight to Copenhagen. Like, do the super chat thing in something like this in the future. So that's my pitch. Again, like, it's weird to ask for money, but it's also like, I know that a lot of people are really split on I'm okay with ads versus I'm not. And I just want to have the option available. So like, if you're going to be the type of person that says you should never do ads ever, you can also kind of like vote with your dollars in that sense. So that's my piece. Let's dive into Circle, shall we? So, oh, there's my notes. So the link that is in all of my videos now, and I hope that it's always choppy when it switches to screen share. I'm sorry if this is choppy. Anyways, the link that will show when you click on the previous link that was redirecting to Patreon in like the description of all my videos, it's the first line in the description of this video down below. This is where it goes. So this is what it looks like, $5 a month. And the way that this works, to give you a little bit of a update into the back end, is that this is through my email newsletter company. So this is the one that kind of like sends you the automations, gives you the heads up. That's where the newsletter comes from. And so this is a product through my email provider. Circle is a separate company that does not accept payments currently. So the way that it's kind of like a bit of a paywall situation is that you support through the email, company for $5 a month. It's just auto bills. You put in your information. It's super, super clean. It's like through Stripe, really like one click. It's way less complicated than my website where like you had to put in your address and all this other information. For everybody who's ever downloaded a PDF through my website, I'm sorry that it makes you put in your address, but that is how it is. So it's just your email, your name, and your credit card number. That's it. And this will just auto bill. And then the cool thing is that when you get your confirmation email, that is the kind of like private link to get into the Circle community. And then the way that it's set up is that like you will get a weekly digest from Circle, so that even if you're the type of person who's like, I'm really busy, I work 12, 14 hours a day, like I don't have time to check in on this community all the time, I have it set up so that it just sends you a weekly update. And then the cool thing is too, that because this is from my email service, this will send you an email the day after you sign up where it says, do you want updates on the community, or you do not? And if you don't, it just completely removes you. You still have access to join whenever you want, but it won't give you, kind of like a flurry of notifications. I want to save your inbox. I'm also kind of like inbox zero club, so like the more I can, give you peace of mind, and there's enough flurry of information. So if you want it to be a set it and forget it thing, this is a great way to do that. So let's talk about Circle. This is how it looks for me on my back end. It might look a little bit different for you because I obviously have like admin access. I can change things. I can go into settings. Obviously you can see that I'm planning on hosting the Demi Skills course on this platform as a fun way for people to interact. I think my head is not in the way of that. That's pretty good. But just above that, this is all the things that are going to be available to you if you choose to sign up and be a part of the community. So the first section is just a welcome section. It is, say what's up, give your introduction, your little pitch, like what are you working on, where you work, where are you working, like geographically speaking. I think it would be cool if like two people in Dallas, Texas could like meet in this community and link up in real life in the times when COVID is a little bit less strict. And it's more or less, this whole philosophy is around the fact that I know for the most part that there's like, I was one of them. There's like one of us. If you're watching this, you might be one of those people. The like growth, self-improvement, kind of like push yourself, wants to have high standards type of person at every restaurant. There's usually like either the small little squad of them, or there's like usually just one of us, And so ideally, this is a place where all of us people can come together, because I know that you might not always be able to find that peer group in your workplace. And so fun introductory section, I obviously have mine going here. And then, just some questions, where you're working or what you're working on now. What's the last dish you ate that made you smile? If you're the type of person that likes to talk about food, this is going to definitely be the place to do it. If you were sent to go cook on a deserted island and you can only bring 2 pieces of kitchen gear, what would you bring? I would be interested in hearing that from most of you. And what's the most important book you've ever read? Just some fun prompts, just to do the conversation. Heading into the next topic is gear talk. And for people who have, kind of the people who are subscribed to the channel that could care less about tips and tricks, could care less about the going out to eat videos, but you're here because you love gear, there's actually 2 videos that are already uploaded. One is a Town Cutler paring knife unboxing. If you've been following them, they have the Pogo Nip. It's like denim handle materials and like the pre-patinaed steel with a K-tip on it. So that's pretty dope. So that unboxing is already there. And then Chefworks also sent me some stuff. And so I unboxed an apron and a chef coat from them and just tried them on, quickly edited a video together and just kind of like put them up here. And that's how I would like to do gear videos going forward. So for example, a company sends me something or wants to start a partnership. So I have a knife company out of Jackson Hole, Wyoming, who reached out to me and they're like, we have 5 different lines of knives. We want to know which one we should partner with you on for a video. I can upload the unboxing here, to the people who are like really invested in seeing the content early. Let me just, kind of switch back here. Can I do that? Nope. Oh, I see. I'm in the wrong browser. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties. I could upload the unboxing video of all 5 of those knives to Gear Talk, the space in Circle, and then have a vote. Similar to what I used to do with Patreon. Like, it's not all that different, but it's something that like I own. This is a space that we can all kind of like create together. So that's more or less what Gear Talk is going to be. If you do sign up, there are 2 unboxing videos like there waiting. If you want to go ahead and creep those before everybody else gets to see them, I think that's kind of cool. Let's switch back here. And then, other things that I can see doing really well in the Gear Talk space of like, I'm debating between this chef knife and that chef knife. If you post that in the YouTube comments, like, it's just going to get lost, right? Like you're not, most people don't have notifications on for their YouTube comments. Most people they don't want the input of all 20,000 of my YouTube subscribers. They just want the people who are like, they're in it for, they're not being a troll, And so that's me wanting to protect you and give you a space to talk about this stuff as far as like, I saw this new honing rod. Does anybody have it or have thoughts on it? And then the thing that is, more or less important for me in Gear Talk is that I have like a list of rules. And that's done, again, to help you and protect you from people that are scalpers or wanting to resell or wanting to just like promote their own company. They want to pay $5 a month to get access to my community, and then all they want to do is like buy this cheap knife because it's the sharpest knife in the world or something like that. Same thing with like affiliate links. Like if you don't have a large audience, but you happen to really want to recommend this to people, like as long as you disclose it, you can put affiliate links here, because I like that's what I do. Like, I think you should be able to kind of like recommend products, and then as long as it's not costing anybody any extra money, like you should get a kickback from that. And so, all things like that, just positivity overall. Obviously, don't try to get the community to gang up on a company. Things like that. And so I just wanted to make that really, really clear in the Gear Talk section. Q&A, obviously a great place for me to just let you know about office hours things. This will be the first place that I go for the community when I'm, launching office hours just in general, because I want to make sure that I get to questions that are left here. If people just have like generic questions as far as like, I have this resume that I want to send off to a restaurant. Can someone proofread it for me? I had a ton of days in culinary school where I would have loved to have had that. Same thing with like, I remember I entered a couple of like culinary competitions, and I would have loved to have bounced some ideas of dishes that I was writing off of someone. And, that might be for the dish / plus menu talk section, but, things like, can someone proofread my cover letter? Or, I'm really debating between going to work for X chef. Has anybody ever worked for them, and what can they say about this person? That's like a great way for everybody to connect. That, again, was really hard to do in the YouTube comments, but because it lives here, it makes it so that you can kind of like engage without me, like I would hope for you to be able to connect with other people. Industry news will probably be, in conjunction with these live streams, a way for me to kind of like leave my 2 cents on stories, almost like I would love for this to be like our little Twitter universe. I know that there's not a lot of chefs that use Twitter. It's been really hard for me to grow that as a platform, but for the most part, if Ryan Sutton has another horrible article, or, XYZ restaurant just closed, or XYZ restaurant just opened and everybody's really excited about it, this should be a fun place for you to leave that news and be able to talk about it. And, the conversation that happens here will hopefully facilitate more stuff on the Emulsion podcast, the solo episodes, because I will already have kind of like some context on how does the community feel about this. And then I can showcase that from you folks in future episodes. Podcast. This is where, all podcast episodes are going to go from, this person is upcoming. I know for a lot of people's podcasts, there isn't a lot of just facilitation of conversation after the episode. I know that it's really, really difficult to, just sync with people. If you've heard a really valuable episode, unless you go on Twitter and tweet at that individual host, it's really difficult to engage with the people who liked that episode too. And so I would like this to be a place where you all, and if we get to a point where industry news and podcast have to become their own channel together and you can just tag posts in different ways, we might do that. But this is how as I was thinking through how would I like to see this blossom, that's kind of what was going through my head. Book club, I think this is a little bit self-explanatory. I would like to post and I called it book club, not cookbook club, because for example, I'm reading this this book all about Stoicism right now. It's like Seneca's book, Letters to a Stoic. And there are some quotes from that book have directly influenced something that I've written about in the 80/20 Edge newsletter. And so and I also said in my playbook video that I'm getting more value from people who have built more sustainable, more profitable businesses than chefs have. And that's what's influencing the moves that I'm trying to make with Voyager's Table. And so it's not to say that you can't talk about things that aren't cookbooks here. I just think that for the most part, whether you're suggesting a cool fiction book of I really like to wind down after work reading this, I would love those recommendations if you want to leave them in the book club section. Or I got a ton of value learning about food cost from this book, or the new French Laundry Per Se book was amazing. It really just completely blew everything out of the water that I would have expected. You can gush about that book here. And again, if you want to leave affiliate codes for that, that's totally possible, because if you recommend a great book, help out the community, you should get a kickback from that. So that's book club. Dish plus menu talk. I'm really excited for this because I think that the possibility to collaborate on a menu with people who also write menus and don't just want to pontificate about dishes is something that I have, one, longed for a while. And also, number two, and this is probably going to become a clip so that I can just post it on the channel and dispel all of the questions that come from the recipe HQ that I created. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this as far as, do I get some sort of fancy automation set up where you can have a form and you can fill out all your ingredients and you can submit them, and then it can become this searchable recipe thing for all of us? I think that the time investment to get it, I also considered, like, do I do something with an app? Like, do I have an app that all of us can download? I front the money to hire a developing team to create an app where it's easy to kind of just like input things on the fly, or just search recipes of, like, I need a chocolate mousse recipe, I need a lemon vinaigrette recipe, I need a tarragon butter sauce recipe. You can go ahead and search that in the app and that will pop up. I think that would be amazing. The issue I have with it is the game of telephone that happens with Culinary IP is not something that I'm willing to deal with, not just legally, but like there's a huge runaround chase with that. And when I say that, I mean, I have recipes that, and I shared this, I think, in that Recipe HQ video, where I have a French Laundry per se recipe. I took it to Norway. I used it and adopted it in a way that I actually felt like I improved on it. And now I used it at that other recipe, but then that would be something that I would want to upload into the Recipe HQ drive for everybody to use, because I know I created it. But then again, this comes back to the conversation that I have a whole, podcast clip on, of like, who owns that IP? And the last thing I want, I'm not nervous about it because I more or less know what recipes I have in my recipe book that I can upload and which ones that I can't, because it's like, this is the fava bean pesto recipe from French Laundry. It would be so stupid for me to share this and claim it as like anybody can use it. And I know I had that little like disclaimer at the bottom of like, give credit to, but the last thing I want is for someone to open a food truck or someone to open a fast casual restaurant and make millions off of their fava bean pesto topped falafel, fast casual place. And then it just comes back to like, I found this recipe from this guy online. He gave it away for free. It was French Laundry's recipe. And then it's like, it takes the good away for everybody. And then it also like brings down my ship in a sense. And I don't want to put any of you in that situation, because you might just think you're doing a service to the community by sharing this cool recipe for, blood orange panna cotta, when in reality, your chef would blow their lid if they found out that you shared that recipe online. And so that's kind of like the reason why that piece of the internet that I was so excited to create has to kind of go away. This is the kind of like updated version of that. So less about posting recipes for just anybody to find, more threads, more dish inspiration stuff, more I'm creating a chocolate and huckleberry dessert. Does anybody have like an olive oil jam recipe that they would want to like be willing to share with me? Because that, I think, is like, that would happen in your DMs, that's not something that I necessarily think can, and you could argue the merits of like, oh, it's really not really that different. I think a living searchable database that's just available for anyone is a little bit, that can get way more out of hand than something that's just like, I'm facilitating the conversation. Because realistically, if someone was willing or able to give up that, IP to you anyways, they probably would. So that's what Dish Plus Menu Talk is. I personally have goals for myself of creating 4 menus this year. I just want 4 menus. I've had goals in the past where like I wanted to create a new new tasting menu every week. So that would be 52 menus a year. Then I kind of scaled it back last year to just be 12. I want 4 menus a year now. So there is a, kind of like winter one, spring one, summer one, fall one. And that's more or less it. Like, that's what I want to create. And I would like to kind of like bounce ideas off of people in a community like this. And so just keep that in mind. Business time, this is great if you are, you know, who does so and does anybody know anyone in the Boston area that is a great CPA because I need someone to help with my taxes. I need to set up an LLC. Has anyone ever done that before? Those are things that I'm not necessarily going to produce a whole published video on, but you happen to know that there's a bunch of people in this community that also happened to kind of be food, media, like travel savvy people. How do I get my visa in XYZ country? Like, that's where all that information can live here. And this is just kind of like you can search through this in the future, So like as this gets built out over time, this will eventually be hopefully a great resource for people who are like, do I build my website on WordPress or do I use Squarespace? Which one does everybody have, experience with? And if you happen to have a lot of experience with posting menus and how that integrates with all the delivery services, you can provide that information to people versus, having it live in a YouTube comment and you have to try to like rifle through all my past videos and hope that someone posted that there. This is all searchable. You can see it right there at the top. And then the last piece, I more or less copied this from other communities that I was researching as I was building this out. I don't know if this is going to do well. I think a lot of people, we're all like-minded, but for the most part, you're not in the community because you're trying to overcome a challenge in and of itself. And when I say that, I took from people who have like courses on public speaking or courses on building your business or stuff like that. And so they would have these like little wins sections. And so people, I just got my first customer or I just got booked for my first public speaking gig. And you can share those wins here. I think the value that might come from a community like this space in particular would be, I didn't think that I would be able to get set up for service 3 months ago, but now after I did XYZ thing at my specific restaurant on my station that I'm working with, now I'm in a place where I feel a lot better about it, and so, or, I just sold my first 10 tickets to my pop-up. I was expecting to sell 8 and I sold 10. Like, that's an amazing win. And it could be the other way. I thought about making this like wins and losses as far as like, share the days when you got completely roasted by the sous chef and you got sent home. Is there a cool place where you could come after that horrible workday? Because I've certainly been there. You get home, you actually get home after getting sent home, and it's not a good headspace. You're not in a good headspace to make decisions. You don't feel great about yourself. To be able to come to a place and just like vent, I think that's kind of nice, because if you did that on a YouTube video in the comments, I feel like, people would, be able to see that forever. And it's, you can delete this. You can know that it's with a bunch of people who are also kind of like in that same boat. They're line cooks, they're sous chefs, they're culinary school students. So, the name of this section might change, but for the most part, wins is for wins. And I hope that that gets taken advantage of as well. Let's switch back to me. I want to go through some questions in a hot second, but if you have questions about the community in particular, leave them down low in the comments now. Feel free to, of course, send me an email if you have questions, or send me a DM as far as like what else is included, like how often can I expect my questions to get answered, stuff like that. And, for the most part, this is also mapping a lot more with, like, I raised my prices on coaching this year, just like 2 weeks ago. I doubled my coaching rate, and that's because I want to positively incentivize people to sign up for this community. You get access to me basically once a week. I would hope that all of your questions that you have for me can get answered. Wow, I went through that really fast. I was expecting to be at like 45 or 50 minutes, but I did that in like 30 minutes. So that's really good. So if you're the type of person who, you want a more consistent one-on-one Q&A relationship with me, I think it'd be cool. This software that I use for the live streams has a interview function. I don't necessarily know if I could get it to be the same setup that Instagram Live does, where I could literally invite you onto the live stream and we could almost do like a mini coaching session, like you could be here and I could be here and we could just have a conversation. I think that could be really cool. I think there's something with FaceTime too that would be really cool if you happen to have just things I'm thinking about, so no promises, but things I'm thinking about and things that I want to build out for this community going forward, because I guess the last thing I will share, Patreon is still live. I told myself that I was going to delete Patreon because I really wanted like a kick in the pants to get this thing going. And it worked from that sense because, as you can see, it's kind of like up and running now. But, as a public statement, I will not be publishing anything to Patreon anymore. So if you want to use Patreon as a way to, and the kind of thing that I shared in the big post was, I support Matt Diavella, I support Nick from Trainer Tips, I support Chase Reeves. And so my Patreon fund, like the money that I just kind of like put aside in my brain as like, these are creators that I support. That's in a bucket, and that just comes out as like my money from Patreon every single month. If you are in the same boat and you support a bunch of other creators on Patreon and you want the money that you give to me to just be like set it and forget it money, that's great. Just so you know, because you support on Patreon, that doesn't mean that you get access to the community. It has to be through this platform. So, if you have questions on that, or if you've been a Patreon supporter for a while, just let me know. But I guess from the live stream perspective of things, and I'm going to get into questions, every single week, Monday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, is kind of what I'm thinking. Time might change. Mondays, I think I'm going to stick with. Last Monday of every month is going to be a public one. The first 3 Mondays of the month are going to be community only. So that's just a heads up. Great way to interact with me, to follow up on your goals, or if you like want to treat it as like a little coaching session, we can certainly do that. And so if you check the first line in the description, that's where you can sign up. It will take you to a page that looks exactly like this. And then you just input your information. Just 3 lines of information, signs you up for support for every single month, and then you get access to everything that's here. And the cool thing is, like I said, this is where the course community is going to be built out, and then if you support other communities, that just pops up on the side, almost like how Slack works, if anybody uses Slack at work. But anyways, that's that. And if you have questions, I had like a huge clusterfuck of a setup to try to get this set up. And so if you have issues and you're like, it's not working, please just let me know. Okay, I'm going to do a quick water break, and then I'll get into questions. Okay. Let's go back to that. And let's see if I can pop some questions up on the broadcast here. So Joe asks, what advice would you give to a chef to move from commis to demi-CDP? I work in a 2 Michelin-star restaurant, so I'm not really sure how to go about moving up. It depends on what the brigade looks like, from the sense of how many spaces are there. Are you talking about hoping, kind of like crossing your fingers that the person who's just joined the team is going to be leaving soon? Because if that's the case, and I've been there, like I don't tell this story all that often, but like I worked cheese station at French Laundry forever. For over a year, I worked that station in the hopes that I would get moved on to canapé. And during my like 6-month reviews, the only thing that I would tell my sous chef that I wanted is to work fish station. And the natural path was you go cheese station, canapé station, fish station. And that was like the path that you would go on. And so I was like, I made it known that that's what I wanted. I would actively try to like go above and beyond by like get my station set up and go help canapé station. That's a really good kind of like way to show that you're ready to get promoted, because you might not be, the timing might not be right, but if when that canapé chef leaves, and this is me talking in French Laundry things, I don't know what the, commis to demi CDP, if you can get all, let me talk to your stuff, Joe. If you can get all your commis prep list stuff done, and then go onto the station of that demi CDP and take things off their prep list, then it's kind of like a no-brainer as far as like when it comes time to pick one of the commis to get moved up, you're already the one that's being seen on the line in that role. And so that might be a really good way to kind of like get that foot in the door. Jack Potts asks, haven't worked in nearly a year, and advice on how to get myself back into the swing of things. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to kind of like go in guns blazing on your first day at a new job. I just think that that is a bit of a fallacy from the perspective of you set yourself up to make harsh mistakes, and it's just not a good way to do it. What do you have to prove? I guess. Like if you're going into a position where the restaurant seems a little bit out of your league from where your resume was at, I can see the desire to do that, but it's almost better to start slow, learn where things are, learn how the restaurant likes things done, learn the proper, like the way that that restaurant likes to organize and label and talk about, like what's the language of that kitchen. The first module in my course is kitchen fluency. And it's more about like a broader context of like how to work in a professional kitchen. But, you know, each different restaurant and department of that restaurant, right, has their own different language. And so don't stress yourself out that if you're going to be operating at 60% compared to your 100, that it's like, it's going to be bad if I start there, because it's almost like a little, and people in the comments can let me know if you've had the same experience, but it's almost better if you get known as the person that sucks at the restaurant, and then you can just kind of like slowly improve over time, because people like seeing that. Like it's really cool to see someone who, you know, previously couldn't get set up for service and then all of a sudden they're just crushing it. Like talk about getting promoted. Like if you can see direct progress of we give this person an opportunity and they rise to the occasion, that's really cool. And I'm saying that from the sense of being the opposite, where, you know, I went from French Laundry to Lysverket, and everybody was like, this guy worked at Grace, he worked at French Laundry, he's going to be amazing. And like I just told you, I worked on cheese station at French Laundry, so I didn't know how to do hot food. And so I got thrown on the hotline, and I just like completely face planted. And so it's better to kind of be an underdog at the start of a new kind of like opportunity, if that makes sense. And, you know, from the sense of getting back into the swing of things of like moving and knife skills and sauce making, could you make all 5 mother sauces in your home kitchen in 45 minutes? That's a cool challenge. Could you do both of my reps series? And the next time you do it, like do it twice, right? So do it one day, and then the next day try to shave 20% off your time. Could work. That's why I created those series. Christian Martinez says, question about abroad internships for culinary school. I'm looking to go to Australia and Iceland to do 2 of them. That would be really cool. I think that it's a great opportunity to travel in this industry, and like kudos to you for taking advantage of it. I guess it depends on the restaurant. Australia is a big place, and Iceland, you know, when you say Iceland, you're basically talking about Reykjavik, right? And so, you know, which cuisine speaks to you more? What potentially could give you more opportunities down the line? If you're telling me that your dream is to go to work in Copenhagen someday, or to go work in Stockholm, or to go work in Oslo, I think the Iceland route might actually be better, because you can show that you have experience in a Nordic kitchen on your resume. Whereas if you think that the opportunity of working in Sydney for your internship and then going to Melbourne for your job after school, like that might be a better option. Or if, you know, places in Australia also happen to have connections to Taipei and Singapore, and it's a little bit easier to get connections into Tokyo from there. And so same with, you know, getting into the US or Europe. And it's not to say that if you work in a restaurant in Iceland, you have to be pigeonholed into doing Nordic forever, but, you know, decide what the longer term plays are. And you also might decide, you know, I don't also tell this story all that often, but I almost went to go work at what was it called? Someone correct me in the comments, but there's a 2-star Michelin restaurant, and it was Italian. what was it called? Sepia in Chicago in 2012, 2010. And I almost took that externship because I knew that that would be a really cool, kind of like blip it would be a chapter in my career where I learned Italian food. I knew that I wasn't going to be the person to go to Italy and spend 6 months learning how to make pasta or learning how to make olive oil or whatever. And so I came to the decision that I would have the rest of my career to cook Thomas Keller, Grant Achatz food, because that's kind of like where my head was at. And so I said, my externship, yes, I'm going to get the Michelin check mark. It had 2 Michelin stars at the time, or 1. But I also would be able to explore this cuisine that I knew I probably wasn't going to ever cook professionally in my career. And so you could look at it that way. Yes, I want to do Australia or New York or wherever sometime in my life, but this is going to be kind of like 6 months of being able to cook Nordic food. Why not just do that? And so maybe think about that. And your question was if it's a good idea to go abroad. I think I answered that. Two questions from Tung, and it sounds like you want to talk about vegan food and you want to come on the podcast. Email me, jkhanna91@gmail.com or justin@justinkhanna.com. I check both. Is it better to apply to a Michelin star restaurant after COVID is over and stay put where I am right now? Are you basically saying that you are not at a Michelin star restaurant and you are kind of thinking about making the leap? I think that's what I'm kind of reading from this question. Yeah, only because we don't necessarily know as a community what the next 6 months, 9 months, 12 months are going to look at. I mean, like a look under the hood, my business partner and I are basically planning on not doing any in-person events until like September, October. Could we be pleasantly surprised and people start to book things for July? Possibly. But for the most part, I think that, what I don't want is for you to get this dream job at a Michelin star restaurant and they're hamstrung by their local governments or by whatever restrictions are in place, and they can only do takeaway food. And so what happens in situations like that, when a business is not bringing in as much revenue, if furloughing employees happens, you might be part of that docket. And then all of a sudden it's like, you should have just taken the sure thing, especially if you're in a position where, most people, when they're thinking about making the leap from non-Michelin to Michelin, or like, bistro to fine dining, or hotel to, higher end food, it's usually a more cozy position. Either your hours are better, you're less stressed, maybe you're making more money. A lot of people email me questions about like, I want to move to Michelin, but I know that like I'm going to be making close to minimum wage, So like, could you potentially just be a little bit patient for the next couple of months, stack cash, and just like give yourself the foundation where when it is time for the world to reopen, and as my business partner says, for us to go into like post-pandemic life, PPL, that you're in a great position to have your pick of the litter of like, you could actually maybe go to an even better restaurant, or you give yourself that stability where, say you do go to the Michelin place and it's kind of like not really what you thought. At least you have this cushion now where you don't feel like you have to slog it out at this place that you just don't really happen to enjoy. I can't say Mops Pug Carlin. Hello, Halai-san. From Bergen, I wanted to know if there were some things you really liked or disliked about the city from my time at Lysverket. I moved to Seattle specifically because I wanted a city bigger than Bergen, but I picked Seattle specifically because I knew that Seattle was small enough where it wouldn't feel like New York or San Francisco or LA or Chicago. And when I say that, I mean like, I drive around the street in Seattle and I run into people that, are friends of mine, so that sense of community I really liked about Bergen. And again, what I didn't like about Bergen is that like, your days off get so repetitive. You go to the same restaurants, you do the same activities, you go on the same walks. The nice part about Bergen is that it's like surrounded by mountains, and so there's hikes galore, which is really, really nice. Especially in the wintertime when we would only get like 4 hours of daylight a day, 4 or 5 hours of daylight. That was really, really hard because the only thing you want to do is like, I would love to be walking around in Copenhagen right now, or Stockholm, or Paris, or London, And so the fact that you're literally like an hour away from all these amazing metropolitan cities, that was really hard. And again, part of the reason why I moved to Seattle, because it's big enough where, if I want to go to a shopping mall, if I want to go to a movie theater, if I want to go see a show, want to go to a nice rooftop hotel bar, I can do that. And so I don't constantly feel this desire to travel. The travel bug isn't just like, gnawing away at my neck all the time. And I know that was more like Seattle versus Bergen, but I hope that gives you kind of like some insight into, it's a fantastic city. I went there last December for everybody that hadn't followed along there, and it's great. Like, I love Bergen. I love visiting Bergen again. I think that from the perspective of like, what was it like to live there, it can kind of get boring. And there's a lot of people, anybody who's lived there can probably say the same. You are welcome, Christian, and you are welcome, Frederick. Casper asks, is it possible to work my way? This is going to be the last question, by the way. I told everybody this would be like an hour-long live stream. I think that's more or less going to be the cadence going into these. I think an hour is like spot on. Hit the nail on the head. It's just the right amount of time. But yeah, any additional questions, please leave them. We have 9 more minutes. And let me know your thoughts on this setup too. I really, really like it. Normally this is open, but the lighting was kind of like a little harsh here, so I kind of left it down. Yeah, that's good. That's good, right? I'm so inspired by Chris Williamson of the Modern Wisdom podcast. His setup looks so dope with like the books in the back, and it's his bedroom, which is super weird. This at least is not my bedroom, but like I have the plates and the cookbooks up here, and then there's like usually some fruit down here, and then obviously the deck behind. I was thinking about like putting Pokemon cards up on the pegboard back there, but then I always get stressed because the light coming in from these windows would make them fade over time. Okay, last question. Casper asks, is it possible to work my way to a Michelin-starred restaurant, or do I need to attend a culinary school? Age-old question, and I'm sure that a lot of people also have their opinions. I went the culinary school route, so that's obviously going to like color my answer for you, because I don't know what it's like to approach a professional. I mean, I do, because that's what I did to get my job before going to culinary school. So the way that my culinary school worked, you had to show 6 months of experience before you could come and be a student. And so that process for me was very much so a game of like, not what you know, but who you know, because I was approaching these little tiny bistros in Wisconsin, like my little tiny town, without any culinary know-how. I couldn't say I have this line cook experience and I'm looking to become a part of your brigade, because it's like, I didn't know anything. I was going to get thrown on garde manger or prep, whether I liked it or not. And so it was a game of shotgun approach. I applied to 5 restaurants, which is basically, if all of those said no, I was screwed, because it was like, that was it for restaurants that were interesting to me that were not fast food or Applebee's, And what ended up happening was I got a job at a place where it was like a wine store that happened to have a little tasting room in there, and they had a chef who would do dinners, where, you could buy your bottle of wine and sit there, and the chef would cook you, mushroom risotto with a New York strip steak. And so I got the job there it was like 2 days before my first day, something along those lines. The chef had this big falling out with the owner. He ended up leaving, but because it was such a small city, everybody knew everybody. And so one of the owners of another restaurant just down the street was like, he ended up calling me or emailing me or something and said, I heard that your first day didn't end up happening. If you still need a job, we're hiring over at this restaurant. And so it was a who you know kind of thing. And I think for most people that's how you start out. And the great thing that culinary school gives a lot of us is a lot of who you knows, you know. It's a lot of professors, it's a lot of peers. Um, it's almost like the school has your back, from the sense of like when you go to apply somewhere with a name of a school on your resume, that's like you have skin in the game, from the sense of like you've put money, you've put time, you've put, you know, other resources, you put things on hold to attend this culinary school. So when it's kind of like a way to stand out in applying somewhere. But you know, I hate to plug it, but like that's why I'm launching this course. I'm launching a course where it's like you can take it in tandem with culinary school, or you can take it in, not quite in substitution of culinary school, but that's why I call it the demi skills course. So demi is the French word for half, and the idea is that it's like the other half of skills that aren't systematically taught. So, you know, less knife skills and recipes and, you know, like how is the brigade structured, and more mindset and habits and organization and communication and things like that, that I think would really benefit someone who doesn't necessarily feel like they have the chops right away when they enter a Michelin-star restaurant, or whatever restaurant it happens to be. And, you know, the way that it's structured is such that, you know, you come out the other end feeling like you are adaptable, from the sense of, I think most of us can acknowledge from restaurant to restaurant, or even like station to station, the recipes change, the techniques change. I always tell the story of like, if you tell any chef in any, pick a random city to make hollandaise sauce, they probably have like 4 ways in their tool belt of how to make hollandaise sauce. And so your traditional culinary school knowledge of how to make hollandaise sauce over a double boiler is a little bit useless if that chef just plans to, you know, make that hollandaise in a way that, you know, is eventually going to be spherified, or it's going to be put in an ISI gun or whatever. And so the goal is to give you skills that adapt to different kitchen environments, regardless of the city or the caliber of the restaurant or whatever recipes that they're using. So, backdoor strategy also works. You know, just go to the back door, say, "Are you hiring?" That's worked incredibly well for friends of mine. I haven't specifically used it, but you know, it can work. All right, last question, and then we're going to log off. I have 3 minutes to answer this. Angelo asks, opinion on leaving a secure job with 401k and benefits, where you may not be learning everything that you think you need to be a great chef, or move on to a restaurant with good food and more leading opportunities. I mean, that's why that place has benefits, right? They're golden handcuffs. They're designed to be a little bit more cozy, a little bit more comfortable, longer employee retention. You aren't kind of like looking for the next thing. But it seems like you're the type of person who is looking for something a little bit more creatively stimulating, personally kind of like pushing you to get to the next level, things like that. And so if you can't, you know, a couple ways you can approach this. Could you stage on your day off at a restaurant that seems kind of like out of your league? Because what I would hate to see is that you leave this kind of position that you're at, where and anybody who's in this position knows this, you don't know what you have until you don't have it. And that's a line that's not from me, but it's from is it Warren Buffett? Some famous investor said something along the lines of, the 2 most addicting things to a human is like crack cocaine or heroin and a monthly paycheck. And so if you're experiencing all of these amazing things, frankly, like there's a lot of people who would kill to have a 401k and benefits at their job. There's only been one job that I've ever worked in professional kitchens where I had benefits. And so could you kind of like have your cake and eat it too, from the sense of, if you have 2 weeks vacation a year, you talk to the people in your life, whether it's your family or whatever, and you say, I will spend 1 week, maybe it's in the holidays, with you as a family, but then this kind of like vacation I have in the summer where I would normally just kind of like sit there, or, you know, maybe go to Mexico or do something fun, go to Florida. Could you go spend a week at another restaurant, you know, like stage somewhere? And then it's like very low stakes because it's like you're expanding your network, you're seeing different food, you're, performing different techniques. But then you can go back to this job that gives you like all these great things that are going to set you up for retirement or whatever. And don't put increased financial stress on yourself. The other option is just to come up with what is that number of, this is a number of stacked cash that I can have that I feel good about. And when I hit this number, I feel like I can realistically go to a position where, and you have to run these numbers for yourself. So like, I might not be able to contribute to my retirement for a year. How does that feel? I have to pay for my healthcare out of pocket. What does that cost? And, you run the numbers based on, what's the lowest I could probably make, which is like whatever your minimum wage is times the number of hours you're expecting to work, whatever. What is that delta between what you're making now and what that new number is if you want to kind of like up the level of the restaurant you're working at? So say, for example, you're making $70,000 a year now, and you know that when you go to this next place, you're going to be, making $37,000 a year because it's, a different restaurant. That's almost half. What number do you need to have in stacked cash where you're not constantly going into debt every month with $37,000 a year as your paycheck? And run those numbers. What are my expenses? Now that I'm not getting employee-sponsored healthcare, how much does that cost for me? Like working in a restaurant, especially on the high end of things, is a great way to save money because you're constantly working and probably eating all your meals at a restaurant anyways. And so I always found that like my expenses were way low when I worked at, professional kitchens because you don't have a lot of time to do anything else, So that might be a real big benefit to you. But like run those numbers. What does that look like? And then, it's a yes or no question. Once you have all that information. Right now, it seems like this thing where, I'm giving this up. You're trying to judge on these very like subjective gut checky things, which is good to listen to, but you should also supplement that with these very like objective numbers, because then you can actually feel like you're making a rational decision, even though, as Gary Vee says, you're not going to know the alternative. You're not going to know if you choose to go for this restaurant, you're not going to know what it would have been like to work at this cozy position for 5 more years. And the flip side, if you stay at the cozy position for the next 5 years, that could have, like, making the choice to go the other way could have catapulted you into like, having these amazing connections, and all of a sudden you're flying to Paris and going to cook with, so-and-so, and it's amazing, but it all has to map with your goals. So I hope that helps. Okay. Darn. It took me 5 minutes to answer that question, not 3. Every Monday, folks. And if you want to make sure that you're on every single one of these, make sure that you're a community subscriber. Next week's will probably also be for everyone, just as kind of like a teaser of like, these are the kind of topics that I'm going to get into. These are the questions that I'm going to be answering. This is the conversation I'm hoping to spark. And so, yeah, I hope that this brought value to those of you that watched. Again, it's the first line in the description. It takes you to a page that looks like this. Nope. There. And it looks like that. And yeah, $5 a month. You get access to a community that looks like this. And then we can talk there. I'm really, really excited to talk with you. If you have additional questions, please DM me. Leave it in a comment here, and then we can, certainly go from there. This replaces Patreon for anybody that, had a question about what is this? I thought you already had a Patreon. Patreon is still live, but it is dormant. You're very welcome, Angelo. I hope that helps, and I hope that you get to a point where you're confident with your decision. I think that that's really important. I talk with my business partner a lot about having conviction in your decisions, and we constantly strive to have that, to be like confident in your gut and then in your head at the same time. I think that's like a really good definition of conviction, where you don't feel slimy about it. You're not constantly second guessing yourself, but you did it with all the information that you could have possibly gotten. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is that they don't. There's a great if you're really grappling with this, there's a really good exercise that Tim Ferriss does called fear setting, FEAR setting. So it's like the opposite of goal setting, where you basically lay out worst case scenario. And it's so funny. I put it upstairs in our attic, but I found the original notebook that I wrote. I did a fear setting exercise for starting a YouTube channel, and I still have it. And it's basically like, what are the 5 worst things that could happen if you go with this decision? Put them all out on paper. And this is in conjunction with the numbers piece, right? Because the numbers piece is like, these are hard numbers. It's really hard to argue with the numbers. The piece on fear setting is more about like this. So like for one of mine, it was like, old coworkers of mine will make fun of me, right? And then once you have those points of like, this is worst case scenario, you then continue to lay out like, what's the counter? How could I either mitigate this, just delete it entirely, or actually turn it into a obstacle is the way, Ryan Holiday style thing. And so for me, it was like, and I talk about this in a podcast that's going to go up next week, where it was like, my friend Ray from the Line Cook Thoughts podcast went from executive chef to the grocery sector. And we talk about the question you can ask yourself of like, could you go back? So it's kind of like, Angelo, if you leave this restaurant, and it doesn't go well, could you go find another job that happens to have medical benefits and a 401k? I think, yeah, like it's not that every restaurant has it, but there's a lot that do. So yeah, ask yourself that kind of stuff. And, I think you got this. You're going to be pleasantly surprised. So anyways, thanks for people who have signed up for your questions today. Again, I will see you all next week, almost exactly a week from right now, next Monday, monthly Monday live streams, weekly Monday live streams. Listen to me, so used to that monthly cadence. And yeah, I hope that these can kind of like accompany you on your workday or on your commute, almost like a little mini podcast. And yeah, I will definitely be taking questions from the Q&A section for the next edition. So leave your questions in the Q&A section. And I also am acknowledging that I posted a Ask JK thing for YouTube, and I haven't shot that video yet. I was going to shoot it this afternoon, but I just got busy. I'm going to do it tomorrow. So I'm going to shoot the Ask JK tomorrow. So if you are in the camp of, I left my question in the Ask JK community post, where is that video? I'm going to shoot it tomorrow, and it will probably be up Monday, by next Monday. I would love to be able to share it by Monday. We'll see how fast my editor goes. Anyways, thank you so much for joining. My name is Justin Khanna, and I hope you have a good one.